This is Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. A quick disclaimer. The content you find here is neither intended to be therapy or diagnosis. It is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to yet another episode, brand new episode 2024 of Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. My name is Charles Adede.
And my name is Darren Collins. Happy New Year, Charles.
Happy New Year, Darren. Happy New Year, Sidney.
Happy New Year to both of you.
Yes, it's been a minute. We took off at the end of last year. Went and tried to rest a bit. I hope it was restful for everybody. I don't know what Darren was up to. He was in Nairobi mostly.
Mostly hiding, yes. I was staying at home and editing. Actually, Dennis and I spent several weeks just editing.
Oh, okay.
That was it. It was very low key.
Okay, that's one way of decompressing, I suppose.
Yeah, though I took a week where I did pretty much nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, but I still stayed at home. I didn't go anywhere.
Good for you.
Yeah, but I was Santa Claus for all of
December.
This is true. I'm not making this up. I was actually Santa Claus at the Hub in Karen. So I had about seven, something like that, days of ho-ho-hoing and receiving information from children about the things that they want. And
were you delivering?
It's out of my hands at some point. It's all magic. Yeah. So that's actually a bit tiring and stressful at the same time. It's done in such a way where people feel very okay treating me like something that's not human, and so they just hand me babies without asking or anything. So one kid will usually next to me will leave, and then all of a sudden I've got an infant. And I'm like, I don't know if I would give an infant to like a strange man. Like, can we talk about this first? Like, how are you guys doing? You know, it's nonstop.
Wow.
So we only took one break over the course of like 6 hours.
Wow.
And just nonstop children. And on Christmas Day, the very first child drooled like blue candy right onto the suit, like immediately. It says like, okay, break. We gotta go take care of this. Whatever just got on me. It was really gross. And so it was. So I just needed to stay home and just like not see people, because I had seen more people than any human should see in the month of December very closely. And of course you have to smile the whole time. So it's a whole because there's a wig and makeup and everything, a regular smile doesn't look right. So I look in the mirror and I have to go up like this, and like this, and then brighten my eyes, lift my eyebrows, and do this, and then it looks good in a picture. But inside, I'm crying. I'm crying on the inside. But actually, a lot of it's really fun, but it's just exhausting. So I said, you know what? For between Christmas and New Year's, I'll just stay home, chill, and then go back to work at the house for the next few weeks. And now I'm in town. Okay.
Oh, that's cracked me up.
Yeah, mental health is real. It really is something you have to maintain.
Sidney, what are you up to over Christmas?
I had a very relaxed Christmas and New Year's. Pretty much just spending time with family. Lunches, putting on excessive weight. And I really didn't do much either. I spent a lot of time with my family.
Okay,
yes.
That's nice. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, excessive weight. That's true.
That's I put on some weight.
My trainer wrote to me yesterday. She says, "Hey, everyone's asking where you need to get your butt back to the gym." And I said, "Joke's on you. I've been gone so long. I don't have a butt anymore. I got a belly."
Anyway,
but
all right.
It's nice just to relax sometimes.
Yes, it is. We also scared the neighbors during New Year's because we got some fireworks.
Oh, great.
Because the kids wanted to sleep early. Well, they were getting sleepy, so we started setting them off at around 9 p.m.
Nice.
And I think we kind of scared the neighbors, but eventually they came out to,
I call that a win. Yeah, for sure. I had one this year that was a spinning one. Have you ever had one of the ones that you put like on a nail and it spins?
Yes.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, I'm glad you had fireworks. That's nice.
Yeah.
Charles, did you light anything on fire?
No. Typically, I don't smoke.
All right. Fair enough.
And I stay as far away from the kitchen as possible. I'm kidding. But no, I didn't light anything.
Okay.
Yeah, but we ended up, again, it was very low-key as well. We went out of town to some random lodge. It's called Hunter's Lodge. You probably know
Hunter's
about
Lodge,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. And we were almost like only residents there for a while. And then we also went for a tour of Amboseli Park with the torch. It was kind of nice, low-key, just very quiet.
Cool.
It was nice.
Cool.
Yeah. And now we're back, 2024. We're already redlining, because hey, it's picked up fast.
Oh, good.
This past week has felt like I'm juggling 50 balls from the time I wake up to the time I hit the deck, and it doesn't seem like it's about to slow down, so it's a bit scary, which just probably means a lot of self-care is required.
Wow.
Just to keep up with the pace of things. Yeah.
That's not quite the way we're having it. I don't think it's going fast for us, but
Okay.
there is some stresses for the company and for myself as well. And I think that's very important for us to remind each other that we do have to do some self-care. Self-care is like the phrase du jour, or what's the du jour means day, so it's like of the year, of the time. But that's for sort of the ongoing stresses. But our guest today actually has, I believe you have more of a reference to mental health in a more acute way.
Yes.
Where it's not so much a constant, but something that's very dramatic that happens. And I think that's a different kind of self-care and a different kind of way to approach mental health when something happens to us.
Yes.
And so, having said that, we'd love to get to know our guest.
Yes. So
That would be very nice. Our guest today is Sidney Chahonyo. That's correct. I got it. That's very good.
You're doing very well.
And Sidney has a unique story about cancer surviving, or surviving cancer, that is. And so we'd like to get to know you a little bit.
Okay. My name is Sidney.
Yes.
I'm the first guest on Me I Am Mental 2024.
You are.
Drum roll.
But I'm a father of two. I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. Actually, they're turning 10 and 5 this year.
Okay.
And 2 girls. And what I do mainly is I'm a cancer survivor.
Mm-hmm.
November I celebrated 18 years of being cancer-free.
Excellent.
And since then, I've been looking for ways to just give back and support people who are going through what I went through.
Mm-hmm.
So my day job, if you could call it that, it's more like my passion, so it takes more than just my day.
Yeah.
I run an organization called Hope for Cancer Kids, and we support kids from low-income backgrounds who can afford cancer treatment. Aside from that, I love spending time with family, spending time with friends. I'm a people person, so I just like being around people.
Okay. So perhaps we want to take you right back to, happy childhood, what was happening then, and how you came to this point of being diagnosed with cancer, what it felt like, what you guys had to do to cope with it, yourself as a person, your family, what was it like? But mostly, firstly, give us a hint, a bit of, ulitoka what was your early years like?
Yes.
Yes.
I grew up in a very privileged home.
Hmm.
My folks were quite well-to-do, and I'm the last born. I have 5 sisters. I'm the only boy.
Man, you are surrounded by women all the time.
Oh yeah.
We should just change the topic of the mental health from being about surviving cancer to living your whole life surrounded by women. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I bet you had an excellent support system.
Yes, I did. I've always had an excellent support system, and because I'm a baby,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to protect me. They tend to make sure that everything is okay with me. So, I'm kind of like spoiled in a sense.
Yeah.
But as much as I'm the last born, I'm kind of like the firstborn. Because at the end of the day, I don't know how to put it, but even my dad used to come and tell me, come deal with your sisters. I don't know. I don't know how to deal with them. Just come talk to them.
Yeah.
They're fighting again, just come sort it out.
Yeah, you're the
So I was
sister
always
whisperer.
that guy who was always trying to make the peace and bring people together.
Absolutely.
So somehow I'm the last born, but kind of also have, firstborn experience.
Yeah,
if you could call it that.
yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Yes.
And my very first friend I ever had, was recently diagnosed with cancer, and that was probably 2 years ago now. And as I sort of watched his journey and talked to the family, because I know them quite well, he was the rock. He was he was so solid in the way he handled everything. It was almost as if when he would talk to people, he was the one who was calming everyone else and just saying, it's going to be okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we know the steps, we'll take the steps, what's going to happen is going to happen. And it seemed like I feel like that would not be my case, where I would be like, I need support, I need people to encourage me, I would need all this, and it was very different for him. How was it received when you received the news?
In fact, maybe even before that, so what got you to that point of seeking?
Yes.
I'm assuming it was some sort of medical intervention.
Yes.
Like, what were the steps? What happened to you?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I was 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished my O-levels. I'd taken my A-levels, and I'd just taken a bit of a break. I had been accepted to a school in the US to study aeronautical engineering. That time of your life when you feel like your life is just about to begin.
Yeah. Wow.
I was actually going to the US Embassy to, sort out my visa and all that. And at that point, I started getting symptoms, just normal, random symptoms. Flu symptoms, runny nose, nothing serious. You kind of ignore it. At the same time, I started getting very mild headaches at the back of my head, the back right side of my head. Just very mild headaches. You don't think about it. You drink water, you sleep it off, you take Panadol, or whatever it is. Yeah. And you kind of just ignore things. Then I started nose bleeding. But that was like very, the nose bleeding was very far between. It was not very frequent. Mm-hmm. But also, before that, I used to play rugby in high school. So it's not a thing that was, alarming to me to have a nosebleed. What actually made me go to the hospital, if I can rewind back to the time I was 7 years old, we had gone on a holiday with my family to Mombasa, and I got a very serious case of mumps. And I was taken to the hospital. I was misdiagnosed. They treated me for malaria. And because of the severity of the mumps and the interaction with the drugs, I lost hearing on my left side. So I've always had one-sided hearing. So now come back to me being, starting to get these symptoms. One of the things I think that actually made me go to the hospital, because before you wouldn't really think, I didn't really put two and two together. So what happened is I started losing hearing because of where the growth was. I was diagnosed with cancer of the post-nasal space. That's where your ear, nose, and throat meet, like right behind your nose. So because of where the growth was, it was starting to block my hearing passage. And that's actually what clicked, like there's something wrong here. For me, I was like, hey, I'm losing my hearing. I need to go see a doctor. So I started seeking treatment. I went to, clinics. I went to all the major hospitals, the Aga Khans, the Nairobi hospitals. Take these pills. In 15 days, you'll be fine. Symptoms would subside. After I stopped taking the medication, that bounced back. I did that over and over again. This is a process that took almost 6 months. And it reaches a point where you're being told by the doctor, take this. I'm like, no, I've done that before. I know it's not that. There's something else going on. So, kind of just start jumping between doctors and hospitals. Eventually, I was an ENT was recommended, an ear, nose, and throat specialist. And I went in to see him. And even then, it was the same issues. Little did I know that he only goes there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the days I was going was, he wasn't there. So I was being seen by someone else. But the day he actually saw me, He asked me, did you tell anyone else what you're telling me? I was like, yeah. And he read the file and he's like, okay. And immediately it just clicked. He said, I think I know what it is. We need to do some tests. So I went in for my blood work. I did my scans. I did my biopsy. And then he, called us back in. And when I went to, get the results, I was sitting there with my dad, who's been my pillar of strength. He's been a pillar of strength for the family. He's always strong. He's always, that guy you look up to. And as soon as the doctor mentioned cancer, I remember at that point, first of all, at that point, everything else disappears. I don't even remember anything else the doctor said. It was like an out-of-body experience. I could see, it's like I was watching the scene from behind, but the volume was really low, so I couldn't really hear what people were saying. But at that point, I saw my dad balancing tears in his eyes. And I've never seen this guy cry, not even once in my life. So at that point, I'm like, okay, if he's like this, and my mom and my 5 sisters back home, what are they going to be like?
Right.
So from that day, I just decided, the way you said your friend always seemed like he was the one who was trying to calm people down, that I told myself, I have to be strong. Even if it's not for me, I have to be strong for my family. So that's kind of how that all started.
Wow. Okay. So from the get-go, you're the victim of this situation, but you're also placed in this peculiar position where you have to find the strength to deal with it,
Yes.
but also to show up other people's, just
Yes,
make sure
yes,
everybody is okay. And how did you, when you went home, what happened? When you broke the news to everybody else?
We went home. Obviously, now, we were referred to oncologists and all that. We went home, and the whole day was just a haze. And I think I had 3 sisters who were, at home, and my mom. The other 2 were out of the country. So I remember us sitting in the sitting room, and when you go to someone's home when someone has passed on, and there's just that
feeling.
That, yeah, it's just So that was the kind of mood that was in the house, even before we told them. So we sat them down, and obviously we were calling them all to the sitting room, and, we need to talk to you guys. And I don't remember anything. I think my dad said everything. I don't even remember anything. And we had to call my 2 sisters who were in the country and explain to them. And that's when now I saw the seriousness or the shock or the emotions that they were going through. At this point, I haven't processed anything. I'm still confused. I don't even know what's going on. I'm just confused. I'm like, okay, cancer, okay. You hear what he's saying, you understand it, but you still can't comprehend it. So at that point, we sat them down and we told them. A couple of them, went up to their rooms to cry or do whatever it is they were doing. And it took quite a while before we actually started now acting normally around each other. Yeah.
A while means?
Yeah.
A couple of days.
Wow.
Because you're in and out of those. For example, for me, there was that, why me? Why is this happening to me? My life's just about to start. I'm about to go to uni and, pursue my dreams. Now my life is on hold. Everything has stopped. Everyone else's life is going on. For them, I remember my mom, she was, staunch Christian, and she's asking all these questions. God, why is this happening to my son? And, all these questions like, what's going to happen? Is he going to die? Because, when you hear the word cancer, a lot of the time, a lot of people think it's a death sentence, which it's not, but ideally.
Even up to now, personally, I still tend to assume the worst.
Yes.
I just sort of associate cancer with a death sentence.
Exactly.
And I'm assuming the majority of people do, and therefore it's like a big psychological blow for the person who receives the news, and then to process. So, how did yourself? Were you in the same space of thinking, this is bad, this is probably the end of me?
It was a bit strange because at that time we hadn't even seen an oncologist to tell us, what stage it's at or whatever it is. So we were referred to an oncologist, and we went to see him, I think, the week after. For some reason, he was very positive. And he was like, I've treated this before, we've caught this one early, and, it's a good prognosis.
Okay.
But even before that, even from the time my doctor told me, the ENT told me I have cancer, I didn't think of death. I just said, you know what, I'm going to fight this thing.
If I get a hangnail, I think about death. I say, oh, this is the end. This is the end. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But also, I imagine mortality is probably different when you're 19 than when you're in your 40s. Just the way you perceive it. I mean, you kind of feel invincible, don't you?
Yes. Yeah.
And was there? I mean, take us through just the mental health response to that. I mean, if it wasn't death, I mean, was there sadness? Did you find yourself wanting to be alone or never wanting to be alone? Like, tell us more about that.
It's like a whirlwind of everything in one big ball. You're angry. You're stressed. You're confused. You don't have the information, so you're just wondering what's next. At the same time, I'm there, I'm looking at my family, they are also looking depressed. I'm trying to be strong for them even though I'm confused myself.
Right.
So for me, it was just a whirlwind of all sorts of things. But for me, I think cancer is a very isolating disease. And I keep saying, as much as my family walked me through the whole journey, they didn't understand what I went through. You know, they didn't experience it firsthand.
Yeah.
As much as the doctor asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? He's never experienced that pain.
Sure.
So it's a very isolating disease. So I took a lot of time just to swim in my thoughts and, you know, just try to make sense of what's going on and what I'm going to do about it and what's the next step. And for me, I just focused on, okay, what's the next step? We're going to see the doctor. He's going to give us, you know, a treatment plan, and we're just going to start that. And I'm just looking at what's next. I'm not looking at what's going on now. I'm not processing that. I'm just thinking about then what.
And then, okay.
Yes. Small baby steps. Focus on the next small step.
I see.
But from the so in a way, you were sure that you wanted to beat it, and then you wanted to do whatever it takes.
Yes.
That was your approach generally.
Yes. I just said, you know what, I'm going to beat this thing. Whatever happens, I'm going to beat it. And I'm going to be strong, even if not for myself, for my family. Even during my treatment, there are days when I'm having really bad days and I'm throwing up all over the place and I'm in a lot of pain. But the minute someone comes in the door, I have to show them that I'm doing well. Because if they feel like I'm not doing well, they're going to get even more, you know, sadder or more depressed. So for me, it was almost like I put on that armor when anyone walks in the room, but when I'm by myself, I just, you know, I'm just left to my thoughts.
So, could you just take us through what the treatment was like, what the steps were?
Initially, I did radiotherapy.
Okay.
I was treated at Nairobi Hospital. So radiotherapy, basically, I'd go in from a Monday to Friday. It's like a 20-minute outpatient procedure. They put you in the machine, they strap you in, they aim it, and they give you your dose. And I did that for about 4 or 5 months, Monday to Friday.
Every day, Monday through
Every
Friday?
day.
Oh, goodness.
Every day. Initially, there was not much in terms of side effects, but after the 3rd week, that's when the side effects start, you know, kicking in. Number one, I lost my taste buds, so I can't taste food.
Even to now?
It's come back, but it's never going to be 100%. Same with my saliva. My saliva glands were affected because of where the radiotherapy was. So for the longest time, even now, I still get dry mouth. But back before, I would have to walk around with a bottle of water because I could actually choke because there's no lubricant.
Wow.
Then from there, I just started getting pain because of where the radiotherapy was. Even swallowing water at some point became so painful that I didn't even want to drink water. So I can't taste food. I don't have enough saliva. Anytime I see food or I smell it, I feel like throwing up. So it reached a point where my body was also just rejecting everything. So I was just throwing up till when there's nothing left, even all the bile is gone, you're still throwing up. So there was a time I lost about 10 kilograms in about 15 days. They had to take me to the hospital and feed me through intravenously. So that was radiotherapy pretty much. Chemotherapy was next, and for me, a lot of people say chemo is worse, but everyone has a different experience. For me, radiotherapy was much worse. So chemo, I would be admitted on a Monday. They give me the drugs intravenously, and I'm let go on a Thursday. Then I have to wait for a month because the drugs are so toxic. If they keep giving them to you, they're poisoning you. So I'd wait for 3 weeks, come back, do some tests to make sure my body's strong enough to get the next bout of chemo, and then go in for the next round. So I did chemo. I was supposed to do 6 bouts, which is 6 months technically. But after the 5th bout, I did my usual tests to see if my body is strong enough. I did my scans, I did my blood work, I did all that. And when I went in to see the doctor to schedule the next, bout of chemo, he told me there's no sign of cancer in your body. So my treatment cycle took I started treatment February 2004. I finished my treatment in November.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And during that initial time with all that pain associated to it, I mean, did you continue to feel like angry, like why me? I mean, these sort of existential questions, or
Yes, I did. It almost happens in a cycle. Not everything at the same time, but first you're angry, you're depressed. Next thing you know, you're saying, no, I can beat this thing. Next thing, you're just weak and you're throwing up and you're just upset, you're uncomfortable. You want to talk to people one day, the next day you don't want to see anybody. It's just a whole mishmash of things going on in your head. So for me, it was a very confusing journey.
And did you have any sort of guide, or not necessarily a person, but maybe like an ethos, or like a way of thinking that would sort of help direct you, or were you just sort of grasping wherever?
In fact, just to including a person, perhaps.
Yes.
So there's a way in which maybe you some sort of mental way in which you're trying to process this thing, or something to guide you, but maybe did you possibly also have a person to help you walk through your emotions? And sometimes, try to give them some sort of structure and help you manage yourself, or were you mostly up to your own devices?
I remember when I was diagnosed, when I saw my oncologist the first time, he told me, I can put you in touch with other people who've gone through what you went through, and you can talk through it and all that. But at that point, I really didn't want to start, talking to anyone I don't know. I'm going through the serious thing. Why am I going to talk to a stranger? So it was pretty much me and my family. My mom, my dad, and my sisters that were around. And they were always there for me. Those days when I felt I wanted to talk, they were there. My mom is a very prayerful, traditional, Christian woman. So, she does the prayers and does all that. So in a sense, because, I was raised in church, there was always that link to God. But initially it was like a boxing match between me and God. I'm throwing these questions at him. I'm asking, why me? Why did you let this happen to me? What have I done? Do I deserve this? And it eventually turned to, after a couple of months, I just kind of calmed down. And I said, you know what, God? I'm putting this in your hands. I'm going to do what I can do on this end. It's up to you. But my family was really my source of strength. Without my family there, I don't know if I would be here. Because I'm the kind of guy who, I told you I like being around people. So I was that guy who was always the life of the party, talking a lot, going out with friends, said where we're going to. I was the one who was making the plans. And all of a sudden I have cancer. And, I can't interact with a lot of these people. And it reached a point where, even after my diagnosis, less than 10% of the people on my phone book, came to visit me. And you start wondering, the people who you really expect to be there were not there. There are a couple of people who would show up just to see, okay, yeah, he's dying, okay. Go out and start rumors, oh, he must have HIV, the way he's looking, I don't know, this, that. And these are people who you expected to be there for you. So it reached a point, mentally I said, you know what, I'm not dealing with this. And even after my treatment, December 31st, I'd delete all the numbers on my phone. The people who called genuinely to check up on me and see how I'm doing, those are the numbers I would save. I did that for 3 years straight because I realized that relationships are interesting, and there's a very thin line between being someone's friend and knowing somebody. So I decided, you know what, I'm not going to waste time. I'm just going to, pick my 2-3 people and spend time on those relationships, because clearly a lot of these people were just acquaintances. Yeah. So for me, that was hard to take. Especially because now even a lot of my friends who are close to me even left the country, went to school, and I'm left there and I'm just with my family. So for me it was a very, very lonely journey, but at the same time I had the comfort of my family. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I think that's clear from where.
Well, that's a lot to all have happen at age 19. I mean, you're already in a place where you're questioning what do I care about, what is real, what do I believe. And now you're facing life and death and relationships being strained. That does sound like a lot for that age.
It was.
You've grown up fast.
It was. Yeah, you're forced to now just start dealing with these things on your own. As much as, yes, my family is there for me, I still have to sit down and process and think about how am I going to deal with this? What am I going to do? The days I'm having bad days, how do I deal with it? But I must say, one of the other forms of support that I got was my nurses.
Oh.
The doctors will come in for 5-10 minutes, look at the charts, prescribe medication, and walk out. The nurses are there with you 24/7. So the nurses would always be, even when I didn't have someone, visiting me, there would always be a nurse coming to check on me, and we'd have conversations and just talk. And for me, that's what actually got me through a lot of it. Just having someone to talk to, who's not necessarily family and going through the whole sadness with you, but who actually understands and empathizes with you. So I had a lot of conversations with nurses. The hospital became, my second home. That's what I call it.
And then he married one of the nurses. Is that what happened? Is that what happened? Or,
no, I didn't.
Find out how you find your life. Now, when you run an organization, Hope for Cancer Kids, it's already clear probably why you do such a thing. Do you feel like the story is similar in the way that people handle things? I mean, you're around people who are diagnosed regularly. Does your story sound typical, atypical, or is there a variety of responses?
There is a variety of responses. Number one, after I finished my treatment, I just went to volunteer at the Children's Cancer Ward at Kenyatta Hospital, and I did that for 6 months. From Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, I'd be in the Children's Ward, just playing with them, doing anything that needed doing, wherever the nurses needed help, taking the kids to appointments, that kind of thing. And that's when you start to see the needs that they have. Number one, kids are very resilient. Some of them you might not even know. I can take you to the ward now and you wouldn't even believe that those kids have cancer. Their kids are very strong. But then you start seeing the family dynamic. You find, for example, Ward 1E is a longer term ward, and the kids are there without their parents because for socioeconomic reasons or whatever it is, the parents have to go back to work or look for money. The kids are usually left alone in that ward. So those kids have very big, mental needs. One of the ways we try to support them is by having art therapy classes with them. Every Thursday, we're at Ward 1E, and we just do art for the sake of art. Just removing the kids from that place where they've been isolated from their family, from their friends, from their school, from their community. They're in this hospital. The kids in the hospital and the nurses and people like us become their family. So we are just trying to, number one, give them a chance to be kids, do something a kid would normally be doing at that age. And then also it's good for their developmental progress, because some of those kids have not even held a pencil. By the time they finish school, treatment, they should be in standard 1 or standard 2, but they've never even held a pen. They've never been to school. You find cases where the mother usually becomes a primary caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
So these families move from 2-income backgrounds to 1-income background. So there's already that stress. Sometimes it gets so bad, you have mothers who are even just abandoned by their husbands. We have 3 other kids in the village. Why are you wasting time with that one? They're going to die anyway. Just leave him alone, let's come take care of him. And a mother, it's very hard
A mother will not abandon.
for a mother to accept. So they end up getting separated or just getting abandoned. And then also just dealing with that stress of my child has cancer, what do I do? And a lot of these people are coming from low-income backgrounds. There's also that financial stress. They don't even have 500 shillings to pay NHIF every month. So how are you going to deal with cancer? Wow. So there are a lot of mental and other needs that they have that we try to fill those gaps.
Yeah. I wanted to take you back to something interesting. You said that you get your sort of clean bill of health,
Yes.
quote unquote.
Yes.
And then a month later, you're volunteering. Did I understand
Yes.
that correctly?
Yes. At that point, my whole outlook on life has changed.
Yeah,
I
because
wanted
that's
to go and
interesting.
build aeroplanes, and I wanted to go do all
I
these
know.
fancy things, and it was my dream actually.
Yes.
But all of a sudden, I'm thinking that's not what I want to do anymore. So, strangely enough, it wasn't a month later. It was about. It was actually about a month later
Yeah.
when I started actually going to the ward. And I did that for almost 6 months straight, because I'm like, how can I help someone who's going through what I went through? And where are the people who need the most help?
So you didn't feel a sense of some people, I'm assuming maybe even me to a point, if I was to go through a journey like that, I might get to a point where if I'm well, I want to put a bit of distance from
Right.
me and anything that looks like that
Yeah.
torment and that pain.
Yes.
So I want to, do my 80 days around the world before.
Yes. Actually, a lot of people do that.
A lot of people.
Even a lot of our parents, you'll be following up with them, and then they'll go back home, they'll finish their treatment, and they never want to hear anything about the hospital,
Yeah.
about Hope for Cancer Kids,
Yeah.
anything about cancer.
Just put that behind and go back to what I was thinking.
And how I did that, I did it in a different way. After that, I didn't want to seek any medical treatment. So, I'd get a cold and I'd just delay.
Yeah.
I don't want to step back in the hospital if it's about me. But if it's about, the kids and helping someone else, it was a whole different thing. I'll be there and I'll do anything I want to do for them.
Okay.
So for me, it was more like the link was between my medical journey and the hospital, not about helping the kids who were in hospital.
Yeah, and so what I think the question that's on my mind is, did you feel like this was it in terms of what your vocation would be? At what point did you sort of get so convinced that you're going to ditch all these other plans and just... It is a big shift, isn't it?
I'll start that statement with God works in mysterious ways.
Okay.
Oh, you're avoiding the question. I see.
I did my volunteering for about 6 months, and then I'm like, okay, now I need to get back into school. I need to get, what I want to do.
Mm.
I wanted to do medicine. I want to become an oncologist
Yes.
to help kids.
Yes, yes.
I applied to a school in South Africa. They told me, okay, you've done everything in Kenya, just come and do some small courses here so that we can evaluate you on a South African standard. I was in Joburg for about a year. I did the classes, I was top of my class, I got all the awards. They told me, okay, now just reapply. This is November. November, I reapply, and then I come back home for Christmas and whatever. I started chasing them up in January. Oh, we haven't yet reached that. There are so many applications. We are still sorting through them. Eventually, they told me, first we give priority to Black South Africans, then other South Africans, then people from SADC countries. So because there were so many applications this year,
Yeah.
you were not even able to process your application.
Wow.
But luckily, my then girlfriend, who is now my current wife, not that I've had many, told me, since you're waiting and you're doing nothing, just start a business course. And you never know. If they take you, you'll go.
Mhm.
So I did a course in business, international business and marketing. That was my first degree. Eventually, I just said, you know what, I've started it. I'm that kind of person when I start something, I want to finish it.
Mhm.
So I finished that. My parents were both career bankers. I told myself, I'm never going to be a banker. First job I got was in a bank. So I worked in banking for about 5 years. I said, you know what, this is not for me. I quit my job. I went and started doing farming. I did long cayenne peppers for export. After a while, I said, you know what, I did that for about 2 years. Come back into the job market. I worked for a HR startup. I worked for an NGO, and I was just not finding that thing.
Ah, okay. Yes.
So one day I went back to the hospital. I would check on them from time to time. And I was like, okay, what can I do for the kids? How can I help? And the nurse in charge said, I want you to meet someone. And she introduced me to this lady who was the board chair of Hope for Cancer Kids. And we sat down and we had a conversation. And she said, you know, I'd like you to join our team, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you can come in and see what we do and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. I met her on a Thursday. I went to meet the team the next Tuesday. She told me, okay, if you're interested, I'd like you to join our board. We're having a board meeting on Thursday. Thursday, I go in. They vote me in unanimously to the board. The next thing she says is, oh, by the way, I'm stepping down as board chair and I want to nominate Sidney. So within a week, I've gone from, I want to help you guys, I want to volunteer with you guys, to being the board chair. And that's where my journey started.
Okay.
Initially, I was doing it a lot voluntarily because, you still have to find ways to feed my family. But eventually, I was the board chair for about 6 years, and then I wanted to take a more hands-on role. So at the beginning of last year, I stepped down from the board and joined the organization as the executive director. And now I'm doing it full-time, and I'm loving what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. I think you're always going to find your way back there in some ways.
It clearly wasn't a choice.
Yeah, and she set you up good.
Yeah, it was a trap for sure.
She set you up good. So, back to when you were going through your illness at that time.
Yeah.
What was your perception about, generally speaking, whether there is enough sort of formalized mental health support for patients undergoing, and I'm assuming not just cancer, but such illnesses, are there structures that are supportive, or are people generally, like, you deal with the body, but what wajipange otherwise?
It's actually very much like that. Right now in the cancer space, or even any other chronic illness, you find that the medical team is treating the disease, but there's not enough support for the mental and the psychological issues that someone goes through. If you remember in the 90s, when there was this big HIV and AIDS came into the country, and there was all this rushing to look for donors, and the government really, every advertisement on TV was Jikinge, take care of yourself, wear a condom. At that time, even by the time you're being diagnosed with HIV and AIDS, because of the stigma and the misconceptions around it, someone could easily just go and hang themselves.
Yes.
So when people were being diagnosed, there was a counselor right there. After they finish with the doctor, they sit down with the counselor for about an hour just to explain to them what's going on. That doesn't happen in the cancer space. In fact, a lot of our beneficiaries, they'll see the doctor. And remember, this is someone who's coming from rural Kenya, for example. And they'll come back to us and be like, okay, what is chemotherapy? What should I expect? Is my child going to die? They don't even understand what they've been told by the doctor because of all the jargon and that they use. And also sometimes it's a language barrier. But then from there they're left to themselves.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's no formal structure. It's now starting to come into light.
Okay.
But I still think there's not enough. A lot of the assistance, especially with the psychological aspect, is done by NGOs or CBOs or civil societies. It's not necessarily done by the medical team. Yes, some hospitals will have psychologists, but not everyone has that access. And sometimes it's a paid service. So for someone from a low-income background who's already dealing with my huge bill, why am I going to sit down and talk to someone about, why am I going to pay more money to sit down and talk to somebody? So unless it's a free service, it's very inaccessible.
And I would imagine, even amongst the free services, is it available in vernacular, where you can actually tell grandma from the rural area what exactly is going on and what's happening?
Yes and no, depending on where you're coming from. Sometimes you have the community health workers, and there are some hospitals that have very strong relationships with the community health workers. So even like, for example, once you go back home, it's very hard sometimes to trace them, and you actually have to use the community health worker to go in and find out what's going on. They were supposed to come for treatment. I can't reach the father or the mother. Who's this person? So yes, in that setting, sometimes you get it, but it's very hard to even explain cancer in Kiswahili. Yeah. So now when you're going into Luya, Kikuyu, and because of all these misconceptions that we have, I don't think there's enough material that's been translated for those communities. Yeah.
Okay.
Even the doctor himself might not speak your language.
Sure.
So your Kiswahili might not even be that good. So someone speaking in English, telling you about your diagnosis, or even Kiswahili, I'm a Maragoli, that's my primary language of understanding. So if I don't have enough experience with English or Kiswahili, I'll miss a lot. I'll get 1, 2, 3 words here. So that is why they always go back, and one of the things I've seen is they go back to religious institutions, whether it's the pastor or the imam, or that's usually the one place they go for their spiritual and mental, in a sense, help.
Do you think you would, if you were to recommend something about improving the support that people get, psychosocial support around, particularly, let's say, mental health support, within those formal structures, do you have any recommendations? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Number one thing I've seen working very well is support groups. Because even with me, if I hear about cancer from the doctor or from somebody who has never gone through it, I'm not really going to listen. But if you're talking to someone who's gone through something similar, you start being like, okay, you kind of sort of belong somewhere. Because, when you have cancer, you're kind of isolated, or, there's the issue of stigma as well. So you feel like you don't belong anywhere. So when you start seeing other people, oh, I went through that too. How did you deal with it? I dealt with it like this. So number one, the support groups are something that has started to work, but it's a very informal way of doing things. They're starting to get formalized, where you'll have maybe a clinical psychologist come once and give them a talk. But I still don't think it's enough. I think that as it was in the 90s with HIV and AIDS, at the point of diagnosis, someone should be assigned a clinical psychologist who they can call on at any time. with the technology right now, you can set up an 0800 number, even if it's, even if it's as impersonal as that. But someone should have a way to ask their questions, talk through their issues, deal with what's going on with them. Because as much as the support group is there, these people are not trained in psychology. They don't know how to help that person work through it. They only know what they experienced and what they did that helped them.
Like you can empathize, maybe you can share a few tips.
Yes.
But sometimes you may not be able to be very effective because you don't have, like you say the understanding a psychologist would have.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you can get to those deeper issues and bring them out and help them work through them in a
sort of structured way. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have, like, as we speak, are you aware of any support groups that are in existence?
Support groups are usually formed initially just by the caregivers, the parents. It's usually the mothers. They'll just form a group. And when someone's, struggling with money, we'll sort them out. When someone's going through something, let's go see them on Sunday. So ideally, that's how they're structured, by people who are in the same kind of cohort, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, okay.
You are in treatment together, or our children are in the same ward, so they form that structure. Then you have now the non-profit organizations that come in, and we kind of try to make it a bit more structured, whereby we'll sit down, we'll ask what are your issues, how can we help you. You'll start bringing in different things. If they say, for example, we need training on financial sustainability, or if we just want to talk to somebody, or if you want a pastor to come and pray with us, those are the things we're trying to do. But we still haven't reached a very formal way of doing it. But we are working on trying to come up with a program. And that involves, we're actually talking to a team of clinical psychologists to see how we can now improve the mental wellness of, number one, the patients, because the children are sometimes forgotten. You go and counsel the mother, but there's a child there who's also going through a lot, even though they might not say it. So the child, the caregiver, and another area that we are looking at is the medical team. We went to a hospital once to donate some things, and we were sitting down with the oncologist, the nurse, and someone from the psychosocial team. And one of us asked, how do you guys deal with this? You lose kids, so often. How do you deal with those? And they all just broke down crying because they don't have a system to deal with what they're seeing every day. So there's a lot of doctor burnout. There's a lot of depressed doctors out there. And they have no way of letting out or dealing with whatever it is. So it's part of an ecosystem. If my doctor is not okay, or my nurse is, not okay, how is she going to assist me? Yeah. Okay. So we are trying to come up with structures that can take the whole ecosystem and see how to deal with those mental aspects of it.
And the support groups, not like the ones you refer to mostly sort of amongst, like for the children. Maybe
actually,
you're mostly familiar with that.
Mostly
I was to ask about the adults. What about adult?
It's mostly for the adults, actually. There are very few support groups for the children.
Okay.
So you find the mothers will have their group. And some hospitals or some units will have, let's say every Monday we have a support group meeting, or we just have a group meeting. And they'll come, they'll share their stories, maybe someone will be brought in to talk about mental health or this or that, and then they'll meet maybe every month. And that's how a lot of hospitals do it. Yes, but sometimes there's not enough documentation, there are things I'll say within a group setting, and there are things I won't say. There are things if I had access to somebody one-on-one, I'll be able to get deeper and open up.
I'll be just more candid about your experience.
Yes.